very excited to have you here for a number of different reasons. You're a business owner, you're a woman business owner in the manufacturing industry, you're an operations person, and I absolutely love operations people. So you seem like the type of person who likes to tell it like it is. And so I'm expecting a great interview with you today as we talk about selling the C-suite executives. So take a little bit and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So yeah, thanks so much for having me on. My name is Allison. I am with Wintech. So, gosh, a little bit about myself. How long you got? No, I'm just kidding. I won't do that to you. I've been in industry for about a little over 19 years now. My background is actually psychology and criminal justice, which really makes no sense going into the manufacturing industry. But one thing led to another, and I found myself having the opportunity to work for a small business owner at the time, kind of a mentor, a second dad to me, as it were. So started working for him, learning a little bit about everything in a machine shop, particularly the operations side and the finance side and HR and IT and everything it takes to basically do everything to allow the people to manufacture the parts. So one thing led to another in 2020, and my business partner and I purchased the business from Dennis. So it's been about 5 years now that he and I have owned it, but far longer that he and I have actually been running things.
Nice. Okay. So if I'm correct here, you have a bachelor's degree from the University of Georgia, and then you have a master's degree from Georgia Tech. So both teams are having a great year this year. So
I
who do you
know.
root for? I mean,
As
it's a
long okay, as long as Georgia's not playing Tech, I'll root for Tech.
okay.
So I always say I want Tech to go 11-1 every year.
Nice. I like that. That's good. I don't really like Georgia Tech, but even though I didn't go to UGA, I'm a UGA fan. So tell us a little bit about your company. So you're in the aerospace industry, and from my research, you're making complex parts for your clients, is the way that I'm understanding it. So is that right? What you guys are doing there?
Yes. So we're a machine shop and a fab shop, fabrication shop. So of our 22,000 square foot facility, we do primarily machining, a lot of CNC mill, a lot of CNC lathe, complex parts. We don't have any five-axis machines. However, we're kind of known for doing things that you're supposed to be able to do, you need a five-axis for. So many of our customers kind of know us as a go-to for some of the more complicated parts, maybe that haven't been made before, and somebody's trying to prove something out. So that's kind of our little niche.
So congratulations on the many awards your company has won, from Small Business of the Year to Safety to Top Modern Machine Shop. What do you attribute that to? I'm assuming you guys have a strong culture there, and that's probably driven by you, being the fact that you're in operations and HR and finance. But what do you really attribute that to?
I really attribute it to not settling. We have a really good, so John is my business partner, and he's been at Wintech for 30 something years, which is crazy because he's only 32 years old. But he is very he doesn't settle when we're hiring people or when we set the bar for different thresholds and different goals for scrap rates and things like that. We don't look at other people and other organizations and say, okay, well, what do they do? We'll do what they're doing. He and I have a very good working relationship because when one of us is ready to say, oh, let's just do what such and such does, when one of us is ready to say that, the other one goes, no, no, we're setting the bar higher.
Okay. So taking the next step here, so I know you have an operations background, but I think you've also done some sales too in some of your previous jobs before you came there. So I like the fact that you've had that background. So is that true that you've also been in sales in addition to operations?
So yes, actually right out of college, I started working for a large corporation and my role was sales coordinator. And I didn't do direct like outside sales, but there very much was selling. And I mean, honestly, even coming into Wintech those first few days as kind of an office assistant after the big corporation days, you sell every day, whether or not you're a salesperson. You're selling to upper management if you have it. You're selling to a customer, obviously. To a degree, you're even selling to vendors. I know that kind of sounds funny, but I think the other way around is, you're always having to kind of show your worth and your value and what's in it for me by doing business with me kind of thing.
For sure. And even in supply chain, I mean, when you're in a tough situation, you've got to be able to sell your suppliers as you are client of choice. So especially when you're talking about what you guys are doing and you've got some high-end clients. So now, being a business owner, you have the most skin in the game as it pertains to making decisions about suppliers as opposed to a procurement or supply chain person. So a procurement or supply chain person, in a lot of cases, it's just viewed as a paycheck to them. And if they make a bad decision, no big deal. They can go and say, hey, I solved the world's problems at Wintech and I put it on my LinkedIn and now I'm moving on to something else. So we do see a lot of that. Not everywhere, but we do see it. So, but for you, I mean, you've got skin in the game, meaning if you choose a supplier that doesn't fit, it can really hurt your company. You, as an Allison, you can't just say, "Oh well, I made a bad decision. I will do better next time," like a procurement person. So if Lockheed is shut down because you can't get them quality parts due to supply chain issue, that falls in you. So go into that and kind of explain to the audience what it really means on supply chain to really have skin in the game as a business owner.
So, yeah, no, great question. I think that it's changed so much too, even within the past decade. It used to be in the old days, I say old days, 20 years ago, if you're a commercial machine shop, you have every bit of control over, hey, I'm going to order this aluminum from this guy, and they treated me right, they gave me the right price last time, so I'm going to call them up again. How quickly can they get this to me? And it was all about like pennies, right? I mean, you could essentially say, well, they're 50 cents cheaper per bar. I'm going to go with them. And it seems like that was kind of the name of the game 10, 15, 20 years ago. But now I think as certain, at least with the manufacturing side, many of the machine shops and those that are in the defense industrial base, yes, of course, it's about the dollars, but there's also other layers to it. So, for example, we as Wintech, we don't have as much control over our sub tiers as many other commercial manufacturers do. So, a lot of our Lockheeds and Northrop Grummans and the big primes, they have approval lists that we have to go to. And then those approval lists, they exist because of various reasons. One, they might have some sort of proprietary product that the Lockheeds of the world have worked on and said, okay, Wintech, when you go to make this part, you need to use this particular extrusion, and this particular company has the die or has the fixture, and you have to go to one of their distributors. And maybe there's one or two. And oh, guess what? One of them doesn't really want to work with a Wintech because they're little and they're not going to buy the minimum 10, 100,000 tons of dies as the minimum order. And so now we're down to one. Okay, great. Now what are they going to charge? Now they know that they're the only shop in town. So
Mhm.
guess what they're charging? So you have all these different layers that, yes, the relationships absolutely matter, but I hate that it's in a way it's almost watered down because in some regards it doesn't matter to some of the pieces of the supply chain. And it's frustrating, I think, as a small business because you want to make somebody's life easy because if their life is easy, then they're going to treat you good. And, you get product in and product out and everybody's happy. But I think, like you said, sometimes there's a very transactional piece and a very to some of the procurement side. And it's like, well, I hit the button, it was in my queue. I hit the button, next, next. And so it's tough when you got one side that's like that and one side that wants to do more.
Well, you've hit on something that's very, very interesting. So back 15, 20 years ago, it was the plant manager that was actually making the purchasing decisions. And they would say, like you said, I'm going to buy from my buddy over here. He always takes care of me and he's 50 cents cheaper. Now, the plant manager may not even have any say in the sourcing because a strategic sourcing person who may not even be on site, they may be living in Nashville purchasing product for a company in Mississippi who and he's never even been to the plant before. And so it's a big, big difference now where manufacturers have hired strategic sourcing people and the plant manager who may have a lot of knowledge has been kind of kicked to the curb and said, "Hey, you just run the plant and you don't have any say so in who the suppliers are." And that causes a little bit of friction within the manufacturing space when you have operations people that don't really have a say so in the purchasing side of things. So we do see a lot of that. So, but you, because you're the business owner and you have an operations background, you do have final say on who's purchasing product or who's selling product to you. So tell the audience, what are some of the things that you look for in a sales rep that calls on your company? Because I firmly believe it's a different sell selling someone that's got skin in the game versus just a procurement person. So tell us what you look for.
Yeah, so I think it does come down to relationships, and it does come down to when we have a salesperson who, so our facility is at our front door, we have a sign that says no soliciting unless you have a pre-appointment. And part of that is because we're so short-staffed. Like I can't pull somebody off and go, hey, so and so just showed up and they want to give you a line card and schmooze with you for 15 minutes. I can't do it as much as I would love to expand the base. I can't afford it right now, and or can't afford the time of the resource suck, so to speak. Not that I can't afford to expand the base. What I'm looking for are for a lot of the salespeople that come to us, some of our usual suspects that are great. They don't anticipate they know what it is I want. So they ask questions and they listen to them. So for example, we had one material provider a few years ago. Wintech was going through tough cash flow challenges because it was that post-COVID time where there were certain pieces of the supply chain that hadn't caught up. And so we had tons of work, but we couldn't get it through finishing houses fast enough. And so we were sitting on so much work in progress that was like 90% done, but we couldn't get it out the door. And so I called one of my material providers and I explained the situation and I sent him a calendar and showed him when I get this particular part number, what happens to it along the way, like how long it takes to machine, and then I sent it out to process. And I wanted to show him why I was going to be late on a payment. And I remember losing so much sleep because I was like, I'm not gonna be able to pay this person on time. And this is a huge bill. And I know I have the money. It's just over that hill. I just can't get to it. And not only did this person come back and ask a couple follow-up questions, he calls back and he says, hey, no problem. Pay us when you can pay us. Right now you're on net 30 terms. We're just going to go ahead and put you on net 90. Pay us when you can. I was floored. I was absolutely floored. And it wasn't because he essentially gave me free money for a little while, but it was because he heard me and he recognized that this particular order, it was a very large order, and unbeknownst to him, or maybe he did, but there was another order right behind it. And he just guaranteed that I was sending the work to him. And to this day, he's one of my favorite suppliers. And sure, I'll get things quoted out and stuff, but really it's just for formality's sake. I'm sending it to him. Even if he is a couple more dollars expensive, he put me on 99, he put me on net 90 terms. That's crazy.
Well, that's what a relationship is about. I mean, it's
Yeah.
usually kicked off by the supplier doing something, or even the client doing something on reverse for the other person, and it's memorable. In other words, it's meaningful and memorable, and then that's remembered. And as you every time you see that supplier or get the perception, he's like, that's the guy that bailed me out when I needed help. And so that usually kicks off what a value-based relationship is actually listening, caring, improving. So obviously kudos to your supplier who actually did that for you, and great for you that you're able to benefit from that. So tell us some of the things that drive you crazy about sales reps that want to sell you. So obviously the economy's not really good right now, except for maybe one industry. And so outside of that, there's a lot of salespeople that are hungry, and so they're out there, they're making their calls, they're doing their things. But in order to get engagement, obviously you've got to bring something meaningful to the table. So tell us some of the things that drive you crazy about sales reps today that want to sell you.
Gosh, I think one of the biggest things for me is when I get an email that says, or when I get one of two types of emails. The kind of email, oh, I actually have three things. One thing that the email will come through and say, I just need 15 minutes of your time. Like that's how it starts off. First off, that's not 15 minutes of my time. It's at least 30 or 60 because now I'm pulled away from something. that, if I'm not seeking out the service or the product, then I feel like I'm doing the favor, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. It's just when, to your point, when the industry's so weird right now and so many people are underwater, I, when I'm feeling the stressed, the last thing I want to do is, do I have 15 minutes right now? No, if I have 15 minutes, I'm actually going to have lunch. I mean, you know, so that's one thing drives me crazy. The emails that come back and say, is now not a good time? It's like I never asked to be put on a mailing list, and yet I'm on a mailing list. That drives me bonkers. The other thing drives me crazy is when you treat my employees poorly. Oh, salespeople. Like if people show up and they're rude to my receptionist or they're rude to the person that answers the phone and I can hear it, then
Mhm.
I have already written that company off. That's a big thing.
So approach would be the big thing. Coming in and saying, asking, "Hey, can I have 15 minutes of your time?" I mean, it's a given that you don't have that. So what would be a better approach in that regard? Because you know what, that is an approach that most salespeople, and I've done it too. I mean, hey, do you have 15 minutes? You know, so looking back on it now, I kind of want to go, but what would be a better approach? Because I have some ideas, but it's not about me; it's about you. So share with the audience what your idea would be.
I think some of the great ways some people have managed to get in, um, first off, of being authentic with the sale. I've had people message me. In fact, just this weekend, someone messaged us on our website and said, we are in and it was a particular finishing house. And they said, we do this kind of finish. We looked on your website. We're not aerospace approved, but I don't know if you have any commercial work, but because we do commercial work, so here's our information. If you ever, that was great because it told me they did the research ahead of time. It wasn't some kind of cold call of, hey, I'm this painting house, here's our line card. Well, then that would have made me go search out and see what kind of paint house are they. Oh, they're not even approved to aerospace paint, so I don't even know why I clicked on this link. They told me everything I needed to know in like 3 sentences. I responded back to them and I said, hey, you're right. Chances are we probably don't have a lot of use for that particular spec, but I'm going to keep you on our list. I'm going to forward it to our purchasing team. And should we see y'all pop up, I'd love to use you because they're kind of semi-local, and that's kind of hard to find in the finishing house realm. So I was excited about that. But ultimately, I think some of the success is not only in the authenticity of the ask, but in the obvious research ahead of time. So I'll get LinkedIn requests that are obvious sales requests, and they are kind of regurgitating stuff that they see in my profile. Congratulations on so many years at Wintech. I'd love to have 15 minutes of your time. That to me reads AI. I would much rather see, hey, I see we're connected with so and so. Did you happen to be at the such and such gala when I ran into her last? Um, Neat that we have a specific, like, talk about the shared connection. Give me a reason to relate to you. Give me a reason to go, oh, Brian, oh, heck, our paths might have already crossed. Give me those kinds of things. Even if the sale isn't going to be a slam dunk, I'm a heck of a lot more likely to reply. And I think that that's a lot of the time half the effort right there.
I like that. I like that a lot. So that was one thing with our group is do the research on the front end. Don't be like everyone else. So I'm glad that you said that because that kind of validates some of the mentorship that we go through on our side. So are the vast majority of the salespeople that call on you, are they bringing you new solutions to help you with your business, or are they just basically just transacting with you? So the question is, are your suppliers transacting with you, or are they selling you a solution? That would be a one question I'd love to have answered.
Most of the salespeople that we have contact us are transactional. At least the new sales people for sure. And I'm in the space right now that they're really pushing the cybersecurity piece of Department of Defense. Regulations are about to change pretty drastically in the next 3 weeks. And so I'm getting a lot of, hey, we can help you with your IT and we can do this. And again, had they just done the research and seen we already have the exact certification that they're trying to sell me, and that's on our website. So little things like that. But yes, a lot of it is transactional. A lot of it is people using acronyms that I may or may not know, which is kind of funny. 20 years in the industry, you'd think, oh, okay, I get it. But certain, I don't know if they call it, talking above the room or what, but that's kind of what I feel sometimes some of the sales people do, and um, I don't know if it's just them trying to get, as much information out as possible and trying to see what sticks. But yeah, it's tough because I struggle with, I'm friends with a lot of salespeople in that cybersecurity space, and I give them a hard time pretty frequently about it. But I recognize that they're doing their jobs just like I'm doing mine, and they're trying to get through so that they can respond and say, yeah, I've got this many leads and these are possible and that. But I just watch too as the market gets tougher and tougher. And if we can't hire as a machine shop, as a small machine shop, if we can't continue to hire who we need to hire, my resources continue to get strained, and I can't give certain new salespeople the time of day unless they knock my socks off in the first 30 seconds.
Interesting. Okay. So tell the audience, what is the difference between selling the C-suite executive and the procurement person? So I know you've kind of touched on it earlier with the authenticity, but let's talk about it a little bit more. So what would be that main difference?
Oh man, I think that's the $4,000 question right there. For the C-suite, I often hear certain conversations. So John and I's offices are right next to each other, right across the hall from each other. And he is a very to the point person where if someone comes to him and says, hey, what do you want me to do about XYZ? His first question is typically that he typically will ask a follow-up question that is a yes or a no. And sometimes it helps the other person come to the decision on their own. But when he asks the question, and then the person doesn't reply with a yes or a no, and he stops him, he goes, no, 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 it was a yes or no, yes or no. So I think that the C-suite, we want, and this is counterintuitive maybe, but as somebody's talking to us, we're kind of already thinking about what our next question is going to be, and it revolves around, how's this going to make me money? How is this going to save me money? How quickly will I see that result? Because what I really don't want is, oh, it's going to save you money over the next 24 months. Really don't care. Um, if I'm in a cash flow crunch, or if I am in a stressful period, then it's going to be, I want the answer of how is this going to help me right now? And sometimes you can't really answer that honestly, I don't think, as a salesperson, because if you did, you'd be told, okay, well, it was nice to see you. There's the parking lot. So I think that the C-suite, we do want honesty. We want you to anticipate. We want salespeople to anticipate what we are thinking and what we're going to say next. And that is typically, how is this going to save me money? How is this going to make me money? How quickly will it turn around? And don't necessarily answer the question you think I'm going to ask, if that makes sense.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you would like to see a salesperson treat you as a client. In other words, tell it like it is. That's going to best help me, not like a customer, like you're going to tell me something just to get a purchase order. So that's a phrase that I typically use is, I'm going to talk to you like you're a client because I really care about your business, not as a customer because I want a purchase order. So that's interesting that you say that because a lot of salespeople are going to tell you what you want to hear just to get that purchase order. They have that commission breath, and so they're not really looking out for what's best for you. So I'm glad you brought that up to the audience because a lot of people could benefit from that. So thank you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
what
And
is
I
the
think too, though, that there's also that piece that I just thought about this. Sometimes what really gets the hooks in me is when a salesperson does offer some information to me that I feel that I'm privy to. Maybe it's not super secret, maybe it's not, you're not telling me the nuclear codes or anything, but I I've had success when someone is saying to me, hey, I want to show you this, but a lot of people don't know this, but this particular spec is actually the same exact thing as this, and I've had success when I talk to Lockheed about, substituting this for this. Then I go, oh, really? Like some of those kind of, you're standing shoulder to shoulder with me, and you kind of already know my grief, and you know why I'm about to say no. So tell me why I need to say yes. So sometimes those kind of, even if it's just a softball, even if it's just something telling me, hey, look, I want to be part of this, and I'm going to tell you something maybe you don't know. That goes a long way.
Interesting. Okay. So, in other words, providing some sort of solution that you didn't think of, or maybe thought of but
Hmm.
didn't think of at that time.
Yeah.
So, what is the one thing that you'd like to get from your suppliers right now that you're currently not getting?
Communication.
Seems to be
Communication.
the That seems to be the big one right now, communication and responsiveness. So
Yeah.
with all of the people working from home, with all of the meetings and PTO and this and that, it is the one thing that I'm hearing from clients out there is they want responsiveness. So if you can respond to an email within 10 minutes, you're way better than everyone else. So communication is the big thing right now that people are wanting more than anything else. So I'm glad you said that. So last question, what would be the best piece of advice you can give a young salesperson who is tasked with selling the C-suite executive? What is the one piece of advice you could give someone either coming out of college or someone getting moved into enterprise sales or strategic sales? What would be that piece of advice you could give them to sell people like you?
I think the piece of advice would be do your homework. There aren't any shortcuts. I've seen a few younger sales reps come out and they are confident and they think they know the answers to everything. And I love the confidence, don't get me wrong, because the other side of the coin is, oh gosh, this person doesn't know what they're doing. So the confidence is great. But do the homework is that piece of advice I give because there's no substitute for knowing a person, to kind of anticipating their needs. It's really all about, it's almost like reading the book and understanding the character development well before you guess the end.
Nice. Okay. Well, Allison, this has been great. Thank you so much. I've really gotten a lot out of this podcast, and I know that people that will watch this are going to get an enormous amount of knowledge from having listened to you. So, I commend you for your business, and thank you so much for your answers today. And look forward to having you on again sometime.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
No problem. Thank you.